Alright, pull off your wheel, and so this is a 46 millimeter. I got this guy and my breaker bar and a length of pipe to go around the breaker bar. Getting it back on may be a different story. Anyway, this guy comes off, and then the hub. Definitely want to turn off your parking brake. Obviously chock everything. Get your stands there. And then this should just come off. Oh, right, the hub's coming with it. Anyway, we'll deal with that in just a second. So this is probably how it's going to come off. The drum and the hub in the middle. These are two pieces. But it's extremely difficult to get them apart, so I'm going to show you what I did in just a second. And then here's the brakes. Alright, so here's my setup. I did this successfully on the other side. I realize it's not the safest thing in the world to do, but I don't have a 2-ton press, so I'm going to use the car as a press. Got my cinder block here. Got a piece of wood under there to catch the hub when it pops out. And I'm going to put a couple pieces of wood under here. And I got my jack stand in the back to catch it just in case. In case this thing fails, which there's no reason it should. And I'm going to lower the car onto it and pop out the hub. This worked perfectly fine on the other side. Alright, that worked great. Just lowered it slowly and heard a big clang, which was the hub. Which was the drum. And the hub looks fine. Whoops. And the bottom looks fine. I had that piece and just kind of. So there was a debate on the Samba between a couple guys about the shoes and putting a spacer in here on the bottom. And it's not a lot, but yeah, my shoes actually are more worn at the top. So I'm going to try that. I would definitely love to have a better parking brake. Anyway, yeah, stronger parking brake. I'm going to take I think if you can do one side at a time, that's definitely great, so you can use the other side for reference. I'm just taking a lot of pictures so that I have a reference for what it used to look like, because I already took the other side off. I'm going to put in all the bearings at the same time, and I have to borrow a tool, so I want to do it all at the same time. I found that the springs that came with my new hardware set were just too big. Even fully compressed, they wouldn't work. So I reused the springs. That's the only piece of hardware that I'm reusing. Basically, everything else, the hardware kit, the cylinder, and the shoes are all getting replaced, and the drum, of course, and the bearings. Alright, I'm gonna take this, take the brake line off. That's 11 millimeters. You're gonna lose some brake fluid, so get a catch pan. Put your bleeder cap on there. Make sure it's not leaking. When you start taking this stuff off, it might start squirting out the back a little. Alright, get that stuff off there any way you can. And then you're gonna have, these guys are 17. This guy on the back is of course 13. Typical. You want to try to avoid breathing this stuff since it contains asbestos. Alright, I hit it with some PB, some blaster, and worked these things loose with a couple of good whacks. Heat would probably be a better choice, but I don't have that. And now there's this thing, this little holder is welded to the backing plate, but there's this little pin here that attaches it to the hub, and it is just fits by force into both this thing and the hub, and you're supposed to be able to just whack the hell out of it and knock it out. So let's see what happens. So that completely sucked. After putting the blaster on it, beating the hell out of it from both sides, putting heat on it with my little butane torch, which doesn't produce a lot of heat. What I ended up doing, this is the same thing I did on the other side, and I don't recommend it if there's any other possible way. I put those screws in a little bit, put my wrench in here, and basically stood on it, and I felt it budge a little bit, and then went back the other way. On the other side, I tried getting a flathead in there on the back, and I just ended up screwing up this part of the backing plate. So anyway, after doing that several times back and forth, then I just pounded it out from the back. And there's this little post that goes in this bottom hole here, and that took like an hour or something. If you had some high-powered torch, probably be a lot better choice. Alright, to start off with, I loosened the bolts. I'm going to do the CV axle out through the hub, basically out through the trailing arm this way, as opposed to loosening it in here anyway, and just pulling the hub off with the stub axle. I'm doing it like I've heard other people say. And anyway, since I'm going to have both sides off at the same time, I loosened all those triple square bolts in there, or some people have Allen bolts in there, so that I can take it off and take the thing all the way through. So the next thing is to take off these four. I think they're tightened to 131 foot-pounds, and there are 22. Whoop, yeah. 22 millimeter. Yeah, I forgot to say, when I did that, it pretty well screwed up those 17 millimeter bolts. I'm probably gonna have to find new ones. On both sides, these came off real nice and smooth, but on the first side, when I put it back together, and then I ended up taking it back apart again, it didn't feel like, I mean, I put it back onto spec with my torque wrench, but when I took it back off, it did not feel like it took 131 foot-pounds to get it off, so I'm gonna put some Loctite on there when I put them back on. When you're taking the bolts out of this CV joint, make sure you bottom them out. When you are putting that triple square bit in there, make sure you get it in there as deeply as possible. Give it a few taps on the end before you start cranking it out with your ratchet or your whatever you're taking them out with. Alright, now, anyway, I got them loose, so I did that part. They were just real loose now, so I loosened all of them except for a couple. The hub, these bolts are a little bit loose. So when you take that last one out, you got your boot. And you got your joint. The joint's about, I don't know, an inch thick or something like that. And the boot kind of jams onto the joint, so it's probably going to come out all as one piece. But when I take those last couple bolts out, the thing's going to fall, and it's kind of heavy, and you don't want to screw up your CV joint. So anyway, I'm going to take the CV joint out over there and then just rest it on something. Take the bolts off of the hub, and then when it's loose, just kind of pick it up and pull it all the way out. That should be pretty easy. Alright, now you're going to put a little dog poo bag around that thing and around the ends of the exposed CV joint to keep anything out of there. I'm going to go clean these guys up. Yeah. Alright, so I did not bother loosening these. So this is the last jerry rig thing I have for you. I got my hub seated. I'm gonna, well, put the hub in the wheel there, and then I'm gonna take this guy and drop him in the hub, and now I'm gonna take these bolts off because they're still torqued to 44 foot-pounds, and I don't have a vise to keep them to keep the whole thing still while I'm taking them out.